I've got Murray Hedwig here on the line, and we've been talking about his photographic journey to Great Bear Island. Now, Great Bear Island is not the only place that Murray has visited. In fact, when I met him on this leaving from the island, he was just on his way to the west coast. And Murray told me that there is actually makes for an interesting contrast between here and there. Tell me more about that.
Well, the thing I think is a feature about Barrier is you've sometimes got the best of elements of New Zealand all rolled into one island. That I think, and also like the things I treasured about Coromandel 30 years ago, you've still got on the island, and that's that there aren't too many footpaths or hardly any at all, and it's still got that lovely wild touch, or the 1960s, if you like. So it's there's wild things that I find on the west coast. And certainly, the Hauraki Gulf side of the island is in fact lovely and wild like that. The blind bays, and the storms that roll in. So there are, and being shooting and being alone in those spaces, that brought back the west coast of the South Island to me. And probably on the eastern side, there are things that are, in terms of the beaches, similar to Northland. The dune element that is a big feature about Northland, of course, comes through photographically. But yeah, I think it's the overall scale that you've got a whole lot of things packed into one small island that's only 25k long, and you can get around it quickly. You can be photographing in Blind Bay, and in a matter of 10 minutes you're back on Nedlands. And so you go switching from one kind of environment like the west coast, and then you whip over to Nedlands, and it's a bit more like a Pacific Island beach. It's that variety is incredible. I've never had access to that sort of change quite so quickly.
Now you sort of talk in terms of the light one gets between different sides of a coast, also different seasons, and just the way it works between water and land here. Yep. Now, I understand that you teach at Christchurch Polytechnic for photography.
I used to. I kind of retired from teaching now, but yeah, I taught photography for about 35 years. Yeah.
Now, in 35 years of photography teaching, have you kind of found the ways to get across the way a way of for photography students to understand how to capture the image, the feeling of a place in photos, and convey that in a square frame? How do you do that?
Well, you've got to find. I think you've got to find the elements that make a place unique. So in many cases, it could be the light. It could be a whole combination of things. Usually with photography, a light can be a trigger, the way it bathes the subject matter, but you've got to find the subject matter first. And in the case of the island, I knew I would put myself out there at a certain time because I knew the direction of the light, and knew the clouds, and I knew and anticipated that the sun would in 10 minutes' time might break underneath and create shafts of light, etc. So, I mean, as a landscape photographer, you've got to keep doing that to get the rewards at the end of a long time period that you may be chasing. So, yeah. So there's a lot of patience and persistence, etc., combined with a way of crafting a frame that brings the elements together. So there's a whole lot of things really that have got to come together and work just to make an image work.
Now, this skill of patience and crafting, as you say, you have got to wait for the right moment. Now, when I first got into photography as an enthusiastic teenager and got my own little dark room together with my former black and white photographs, there was still what seems now quite a few years ago, they were photographing on film. In those days, to take a photo, you'd sort of just you wouldn't just click away happily into your digital memory, but you'd be quite conscious of the cost, both in terms of money, but also time involved in getting the shot out.
Sure.
And therefore, the waiting for the right moment seemed much more the right investment. Whereas now you sort of feel, hey, I'll just put the camera there, put an auto shoot, and walk away and have a coffee. Is that really so?
Not for me, because I've grown up so long in that film culture. I had such a strong film upbringing that I still photograph that same way, even though it's in digital. Because when I think about, I don't make frames endlessly because I've still got to process them at the end of the day. They're shot in RAW and they've got to go through it and be processed. So, what's the point in making files you're not going to use? True, when you want that sort of wave breaking at a certain moment, then you're still shooting for that moment. But I'm still, and I must also mention that I have a large format background, so I've been shooting with large format cameras, and that requires an incredible kind of discipline when you're shooting because the film is expensive. So you put your eye around there and you make sure you're crafting an image in the right particular place because you know your composition's right, and then you're waiting for the light. And then I might only take 2 shots because, you know, every time I'm clicking the shutter might be $7 with film plus processing. These days it's closer to 15. You know, so it's I was shooting with 4x5 camera on the island and then a panorama camera as well as a digital camera. So I had 3 kind of cameras I was trucking around in the car, and then would choose to work the one that was appropriate.
Or you'd also in that way be looking at 3 different types of images to look out for.
Yes, certainly. I mean, the panorama, of course, the long stretched image, there are certain things that just cry out for that. And I prefer to do that rather than stitching digitally. So I'm kind of a bit of a purist, you can hear. But to capture that whole moment, and you're not just stitching a few digital frames together, and spending a lot of time, you know, alongside your computer to make the image.
Now, before you were saying that one thing you would have told students is to look for the unique characteristics of a place and bring that out. Now, one of the unique characteristics of this island, certainly I'd imagine a few people would agree with that, is our own community, the people that we have here on the island.
Oh, absolutely. Now, you haven't got many people, but what people you've got are real characters. You've got some strong personalities. I mean, we only, Anita and I just started, we've got a lot more work to do on that. I mean, we've just chosen a few, and we've done sound recordings, and those are eventually going to perhaps be on the website, newzealandstories.com. But yeah, I think that's the people and why they are there seem to be incredibly important. They've chosen to live on Great Barrier Island, and with each story opens a new kind of thing. So yeah, the person's relationship with the island, it's a fantastic place for that kind of thing. People and a context. Is
that something that you've already picked up elsewhere? Is it the kind of thing you've made a project of already earlier?
No, I haven't, because I'm not kind of a strong documentary photographer like in the mould of Robin Morrison and whatever, who have gone out and photographed that. But I mean, where we were starting to record stories of people really comes from Anita's baby project, which was Salt of the Earth characters. She had this lovely concept of taking ordinary New Zealanders and just finding out the story of their lives or some aspect of them. Each person's got a unique story. So that kind of Salt of the Earth thing was driving some people. That's what was behind capturing some of the people on the island. But I think even if you're not going to record stories and you wanted to use photography, as you say, to capture island life, then there's great opportunities on the island. Yes, yeah.
And maybe I'll take a break with another music track here. But the opportunities on the island here that one, as a photographer, as a visual artist, could explore. I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about that in the next session. So,
okay.
Once I had a lover in Berlin, said a frail old woman at the table next to mine. His voice was like an ancient violin.